welcome to Old Ways Gardening and Prepping. My name is Teresa. I'd like to welcome you out to the shed of many wisdoms that has been affectionately named by several of my wonderful channel family. And I'll use it once in a while. It sounds different to me, but I'll get used to it. Now, tonight's topic is going to be canning some pork stew up. Now, this is going to be a mishmash pork stew because I have some vegetables that I would like to get used up before they go bad. And with this storm coming, I'm going to get this canned up before it gets here. Now, of course, let me turn the camera. I'm a rebel canner. Y'all should know this by now. So I have, and yes, it's in two pieces because I had to cut it in half. This is a beautiful big pork loin. I don't buy small pork loins. I buy real pork loins. And I cut this in half and smoked it for a little bit last night until I had to go home and get some sleep. So it does have some smoke on it. Got carrots, two big beautiful onions, some potatoes, and I have some cabbage, some celery, and some leeks that need to get used up, and some fresh oregano that needs to get used up. And I will also be using some homemade dehydrated mushrooms because I don't have any fresh, and you use what you have. Now, ingredients are optional. A stew should have carrots, onions, and potatoes in it. That's a given unless you're allergic to them. Everything else is optional. I just want to use it up before it goes bad. So, and of course, for those who always ask, yes, everything has been washed. Believe me, it has been washed. My worktop has been sanitized. My hands are very clean, and yeah, I'm ready to roll. So let's get started. And I will be pressure canning this recipe because it does have meat in it. And we're going to get started with the carrots. They have been washed. Now, unless the carrot is very hairy, I don't have time to peel my carrots. And to me, it's a waste of time. Yeah, looks like I need to wash my big knife. Well, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 carrots. I'm going to slice up into rounds and put them in the bowl, and I'll bring you back as soon as I'm done. Okay, I thought I'd bring you back for the last carrot. All I do is trim off the end and the tip, only if the end needs it. Clean up little bitty spots. If the hairs are just a little too long, then I'll trim those off. Sounds like a life lesson there, but beside the point. Alright, as you notice, I cut the part of the carrot when it started getting really big, and what I do is I just cut them in half. Back in the day when I was entering and competing in county fairs and state fairs and all that, I was worried about pretty, and it had to look perfect and all that. Well, I got older and wiser, and these times now have come about. I don't care if it looks pretty in the jar or not, as long as it's going to feed us and sustain us during these times when food is going to get harder to get a hold of. That's what matters to me. Alright, let's start with our first onion. And yes, I had to go clean up my big knife because the fillet knife's good, but I just cannot chop and dice and all that fun stuff as fast with the fillet knife. And yes, that is coffee. Alright, now, when you cut an onion, oops, I'm taller than I thought. When you cut an onion and you see the white milk come out, be prepared. That means that's going to be a strong onion. Nothing wrong with the onion at all. It's just going to be really strong. It just means that onion has been in storage for a good while. And it's going to impart some really good onion flavor. Let's see now. I'm going to cut my onion in half, and then I'm going to slice it fairly big. When I'm eating a stew, I want to see the vegetables. I like a real chunky stew. And actually these onions could be a whole lot chunkier for my likes. But when you're trying to fit as much into a canning jar as possible, you do whatever size you can get them. And smaller is usually better because you can fit more in the jar. Now once I get my meat cut up, I'm cutting up the vegetables first. But once I get the meat cut up, I might have to cut up more carrots, more onions, more potatoes. It just depends. Because it's a stew. I want to make sure that each jar has some carrots and potatoes and onions in it. And take that layer off because I can tell it's going to be one of those tough layers. And you definitely don't want that in a stew because it's still going to be hard. Yep, these onions are some tough old onions. But that's okay. This means they're going to impart even more flavor. Go and get the onions cut up and out of the way. Now, onto the potatoes. Yes, I do not peel my potatoes. I can them with the peels on because all the nutrition of a potato is in the skin, folks, in the skin. The inside is nothing but starch. I like some nutrition in my food. And of course, like I said, I like my potatoes also a little chunkier, but I'm going to try to get as much as I can into a jar. So I'm going to cut them a little smaller. And yes, these have been washed and washed very well. lost that one. And you want to keep your eye out for bad spots. Just cut them out. Don't waste that piece of potato. Just trim around it. Too many people waste food. And like I said, waste not, want not. In this day and time, you can't afford to waste food. Okay, I'm going to come back to potatoes. And yes, I know some people will go, ew, cabbage. Well, yeah. When I want to keep it from going bad, it can make itself appear in a stew. Not every jar is going to have it in it, but there's going to be some cabbage in there. This is a throw together stew, and I'm trying to use up vegetables so they don't go bad. My Irish heritage won't let me waste no potatoes or no cabbage. Alright, now these are leeks that I've been needing to use for a while. I've done cleaned them up, washed them out, and dried them best I can. And they're a little soft. But you know what? They're going to cut. And they're going to taste wonderful in that stew. And like I said, there's no guarantee that a piece of it will get in every jar. But you know what? I know it's still in there. And this way, I know it's not going to go to waste. And if you've never had leeks before, they're absolutely wonderful. You need to try them. I don't have much, but I got a little bit of celery. I love celery in stew, but this is what I have to work with, so this is what I'm going to run with. Cut it down so I know there'll be, I prefer to keep my celery in longer pieces, but I also want to know that it's in there. And I see so many people throw away the tops. No! Use those tops. They're wonderful. They are absolutely wonderful. And like I said, not every jar is going to have some celery, but there's going to be some that do. Make do with what you have. Now, if you have more celery at the house, use more celery. If you don't like celery, leave it out. If you don't like cabbage, leave it out. If you have more cabbage, throw it in. There's more nutrition that you can pack into a jar is going to help you in the long run. And see, I knew that one was going to have some bad spots, because I could tell by the peel. Just cut them bad boys out. Don't throw that potato away. Grandma be smacking you. I waste that potato, my grandma would be rolling in her grave. And as long as you wash your potatoes good, yes, you can use the peel. And no, I do not pre-cook or anything like that my potatoes. Because when I get ready to open a jar, I'm going to thicken it up and make either a roux or make some kind of gravy. You think I'm going to be able to tell that, you know, the jar is a little cloudy? No. In this day and age, you cannot worry about pretty jars on the shelf. No, you need to be thinking about jars full of food that's going to keep you alive. I can understand wanting pretty jars and everything to look good, but in this day and age, you can't afford that. Alright, after I get these potatoes finished up, I'll bring you back. See you here in a bit. Okay, got those all cut up, and you're going to want to mix it really good. Now, another thing you can do if you wanted to is, and since it's only 2 of us, and believe me, people are going to have to learn how to eat a whole lot less than they're used to eating. If you wanted to, you do it in a quart jar as well if you have a bigger family. And since it's only 2 of us, I don't have to do no great big jar, even though I'd like to. You can take your pint jar and fill it halfway with the porkloin, which I'm fixing to show you how to cut up. Also, make sure you don't have no big pieces. Break them up. You could fill the jar halfway with your porkloin, and then fill the rest of the jar with your vegetables. It's up to you and how you want to do it. Now, I don't have any fresh mushrooms, and we like mushrooms in our stew. I'm going to add some dehydrated mushrooms in here. And of course, they'll rehydrate as they cook. And these look like baby Bella mushrooms. Or it could be a mixture of Bella and regular white bud mushrooms. But I do know one thing, I want a little bit more in there. Oh. There's always got to be that one escapee. And like I said, they'll reconstitute and soften up as their pressure can. Okay. And like I said, I'm going to mix my meat and vegetables up. Let me wash my hand. got to get another roll of paper towels out. That's always a must to have. Oh, one more thing before I go to cutting up meat. I try to cut my vegetables up first, because they don't make as big a mess on the cutting board as the meat will. Now also, if you wanted to, diced tomatoes would be wonderful in this too. I got this fresh oregano. It's been being needed to be used for a while now. Just make sure that you, also when you're cutting up vegetables, make sure you have a compost bucket so you can throw your ends and stuff away, or put your ends and stuff in it and put that in your compost pile. Because I'm telling you folks, we're not going to be able to get much fertilizer this year. And you need to be making as many compost piles as possible. Oh my gracious, that smells so good. I know I have no clue how much oregano that is. There's 1 tablespoon, we'll find out. 2 tablespoons. Let's just say 3. Now, if you just have dried to use, that's fine too. Use that dried. Now, I'm going to wait and add my salt and seasonings to the jar before I add the stew to it. I'm going to tell you right now, this is smelling good. Okay, let's get this first pork loin out. And like I said, I got to put it on the smoker for a little bit. It didn't, and it is raw. It is raw. But it's going to cook in that jar in that pressure canner. So I'm not worried one bit about it. And let me tell you, it smells good. Trying to get to my garbage bag without knocking y'all a winding. Let's see. You can smell that smoke like no tomorrow. Whoops, I'm just hitting everything. And I'm going to slice my pork loin thin. That way I can get more pieces into the jar. I'm going to trim a little bit of the fat off, not a whole lot, because fat is flavor. Fat also will help you in survival situations as well. Our bodies are machines, and you just cannot cut out all the fat. It's just like you cannot cut all of your salt intake out, or you're going to make yourself really sick. Why do you think every time you go to the emergency room, first thing they do is stick a saline bag on you and an IV? But they never tell people that. Oh, this smells so good. And of course the smoky flavor will impart into the stew as well. I'm just going to have to be careful how I cut that baby up. Any tough pieces, I'll put that to the side and give to Jana. She'll be tickled to death. And like I said, this is only half of the pork loin. I'm going to cut some, not all, some of that fat off because I want some in there. And of course, you choose how you want to cut your meat up. I'm going for a little bit smaller pieces so I can get more in a jar. I'm going to do one more. And then I'm going to bring y'all back when I get it all cut up. Now if you wanted to save all this, the fat trimmings, and keep that for a pot of beans, pot of greens, because it's going to have that wonderful smoky flavor in it. Waste not, want not. And actually, a lot of people don't know, you can also cut those fat trimmings up into cubes like I'm doing, and can them as well. I'm fixing to pull up my little dinky bar stool, and I'm going to sit down and finish cutting this pork loin up, and I will bring you back as soon as I'm done. Okay, I got the first half of the pork loin cut up, almost filled the bowl up. Now it's time to work on the second pork loin. Now, before anybody goes wild, nothing's wrong with that meat. That's smoke. And that's why the inside is pink. I got me a good old pile of trimmings over here for beans or greens or just to put up. Another nice, beautiful piece of pork loin. Got a little more smoke, but that's okay. That's fat. That can come off anyway. Beautiful smoked piece of pork loin. Now I'm just praying that this hand is going to hold up for me to finish cutting this up, because it is not one bit happy. Bad part of having tendinitis. I don't want to slice my pieces too thick, but I don't want them too awful thin. And this fillet knife has been amazing. Let me tell you, Oh, it smells so good. Might not be smoked a whole lot, but let me tell you, you smell it. When I finally got through smoking last night, and said, well, not through smoking, but finally said, Uncle, there was a fog around the neighborhood. Good old, look at that, good old smoked fat to go into another recipe. This end of the pork loin doesn't have a whole lot of fat, so I don't have to trim a whole lot off. And I will bring you back as soon as I get done cutting this half up. See you at the wall. Okay, after some long thought, and plus, first off, I'm done cutting up the second pork loin, and the bowl is full. And I have a nice pile of smoky trimmings to cut up and add in the beans, greens, you name it. I can use that. Alright, after some thought, I was going to raw pack it into my jars, but I think I'm going to bust out my electric roaster here, and I'm going to let it cook for just a little bit, not long. I don't want it completely cooked, but that way the meat will shrink down some. It'll give me, instead of using water and guesstimating in the jar, it'll give me a nice broth, well actually a stock, to put in the jars with the stew, and I'll be able to get more in my jars. So I'll bring you back once I get everything set up. I gotta wash my hands, clean up my workspace. It's always something to do. I'll see you back here in a bit. My electric roaster is clean and ready to roll, and I'm going to gently try to pour all of this in there. And another good thing, it'll give a chance for the vegetables to wilt down, everything to mix very well. And it'll give me a little bit of a broth instead of just using water. Well, a stock. With all this, it's not a broth. But I'll be able to get even more in my jars. Just want to make sure you get all of that out. I wish I would have thought about this a whole lot sooner, saved me some time. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of water. I want a whole lot. Let's see how much we got. Yep. I'm going to cut this up to 350. And I'll give a chance for the onions to cook down a little bit, the cabbage, the leeks. It'll help make the meat firm up. Like I said, I'm not going to cook it all the way done. I'm going to finish cooking it once it's in the jars. But this will help to fill the jars nicely. And I'm hoping to get 19 pints out of this batch. You want to make sure that your meat's mixed up very well. And if you're new to cooking with these tabletop oven roasters, watch your sides of your pan, because it does like to at times stick and burn. But as long as you keep an eye on it, it'll be fine. Now I'm going to clean up my workspace, get my jars ready, get my seasoning in my jars, and I will let you know what that's going to be. And get my pressure canner ready to roll. And I'll see you back here in just a little while. Well, it's going to be a while, but I'll see you back. Okay, I have finally got everything ready to can. I have my All-American 921 canner heating up. I have the stew, the cabbage and leeks and onions have wilted down some. The meat's cooked just a little bit, and that way I'll be able to get more in the jars. I have 19 pints ready to roll because I'm blessed to be able to do 19 pints in one load. Now, as you can see, the jars are warm. I've already put some spices in the bottom. And of course now I'll have the recipe in the description box below. In each jar there's a half a teaspoon of pink Himalayan salt, a teaspoon of parsley, and a quarter of a teaspoon of fresh ground black pepper. And I'm going to fill the jars about halfway, and then I'm going to put a half a teaspoon of minced garlic in each jar. And yes, I'm cheating. I'm using already minced garlic because I would have been busy for a while. Alright, let's get busy. Now, of course, everything's been cleaned and sanitized. The work surface is clean and sanitized. My jars are. And you're going to need a spoon to spoon your stew into the jars, a ladle to get this wonderful broth, or actually stock, out of the roaster to put in the jars. Definitely going to need a debubbler, a funnel, and a bowl of vinegar, and this is apple cider vinegar, to wipe the rims of the jars. I have my bands and my lids ready to go. My lids do not have to be pre-soaked, which is wonderful. Alright, I'm going to put some broth in the jar first. And like I said, my meat is not fully cooked. It's just cooked enough for it to shrink a little. And listen, I know a lot of people call this snow in the broth or the stock. Guess what? Don't care. It's called flavor. And I'm still going to use it. Same thing goes for chicken. Nope. I don't worry about pretty chicken. I want food in the jar. And of course, you want to make sure that you get it all packed down. In goes my half a teaspoon of minced garlic. Let me tell you, it smells good in here. Get some more stew. Gotta make sure you get a little bit of everything in that jar. And you're going to want a 1-inch headspace. The more you can get in the jar, the better off you will be. because I'm going to make sure there's enough stock in here that I can make gravy with. All I have to do is thicken it with flour or cornstarch or make a roux. Or if I really want to do it, I can use instant mashed potatoes as well. Yes, instant mashed potatoes are wonderful to use as a gravy. Make sure you get all the bubbles. But look how beautiful that jar is. Alright. And bring up another jar to put your funnel in. Moisten your paper towel. Wring it out because you don't want a whole bunch of vinegar all on your rag. Because there's a good chance you can get down in your jar, and yeah, that would just be nasty. Take a lid, double check, always double check your lids, and triple check. Put your band on just barely finger tight, and there's the first jar for the canner. We're going to do one more. And that way, put a little bit of stock in first. That way you can swirl your herbs around. And believe me, those herbs will move around during the cooking process. And this is going to be some amazing stew. Sometimes it just needs a little bit of extra persuasion to get down in the jar and fill that jar up. Because it's going to, well, crap. It's going to shrink while it cooks. Hate to waste garlic. I think I'm going to put my spoon on the countertop. That way I don't have that happen again. And I'm going to smell like garlic. But that's okay. It'll keep the vampires away from me. Put some more stock in here. And that way I can debubble it really good. Make sure there's no bubbles in there. The mushrooms have rehydrated very nicely. And you definitely want a 1-inch headspace. And you do not want to pack this in with anything metallic or metal, because you could crack your jar, your rim, and then, yeah, that's not any fun. And we're going to debubble just one more time. Oh, I'm going to tell you right now, that smells amazing. Wipe that rim really good because you're dealing with pork, and there's going to be a lot of, well, not a whole lot, but it's going to be a good amount of fat. And like I said, 1-inch headspace. Barely put your pressure on your ring, get your ring down, and there's 2 fixing to go over in the canner. I will bring you back as soon as I get these jars filled. See you here in a bit. Finally, I am done jarring up the stew. I was blessed with 19 pints and a little bit left over to make dinner with tonight. Now, this is a 921 All-American. All I have to do is oil the rim. I don't have to worry about seals, any of those rubber compartments or nothing. As long as I oil the rim, the lid will be fine. I'm going to put my lid on. Now I've already looked through my vent pipe to make sure that it's not clogged. And you're going to do opposite sides. Barely snug. Barely snug. Barely snug. Then you're going to go back and tighten them down. Now I'm going to cut my flame up a little bit. I have my flame up, and I'm going to wait till she comes up to pressure, and I will bring you back for that moment. I'll see you here in a little bit. She has come up to pressure, and I'm going to let her vent for 10 minutes. And as soon as the 10 minutes is over, I will bring you back. See you here in a little bit. It has vented for 10 minutes, and I'm going to put my 10-pound weight on her. Now, depending on your altitude, you'll either use a 5, a 10, or 15 pounds of weight. You need to, if you don't know, you need to contact your local agricultural extension agency, and they can tell you what your weight for canning is for your area. Now, I'm going to wait till she comes to a steady 11 pounds of pressure, and I'll bring you back. She has finally come to a steady 11 pounds of pressure, and now we're going to time it for 75 minutes. Now, if you're doing quarts, you're going to want to do it for 90 minutes. And I will bring you back as soon as the 75 minutes is over. I'll see you here in a little bit. Alright, she has canned for 75 minutes. I'm going to cut the flame off. You don't touch anything. You leave it completely alone. Let it naturally depressurize down to 0. And I usually wait about 30-45 minutes afterwards. And I will bring you back as soon as all of that is done. See you later on. She has completely depressurized down to 0. Also, always use a pot holder to remove your weight because it will be hot. And it's time to open her up. I get my hands to work. Aha. All the chopping and dicing just really aggravates my hands. And the storm that's coming really aggravates them. Okay. We're going to gently remove the lid. Always open it away from you. You see all that steam? It will get you. And you're going to want to use some jar lifters. Beautiful, beautiful jar. Let me hold it down where you can actually see it. The first of 19 pint jars to take out. And once I get the whole canner unloaded, I'll bring you right back. And here we have 19 beautiful pint jars of porkloin stew. Now, you can use it as stew, add a little water when you go to heat it up, and then thicken it, or you can use it for a base for a soup as well. You can eat it either way. Now, they are extremely hot, so be careful. Do not touch them with your bare hands because they will burn you badly. Make sure you put them on a towel on your surface, because if your surface is cold, it can crack the bottom of your jars out. So always use a towel to set your jars on. But if you can see, they're just a bubbling away. They are hot. After about 8 hours of letting them cool, check your lids. And if any did not seal, just put them in the fridge and use them within a week's time. They're perfectly fine. Nothing's wrong with them. It just means your lid failed. That's all. Now, let them rest for 24 hours. After 24 hours, remove your bands and make a warm, not hot, sudsy bath in your sink. Give them a good wash and let them completely dry. And then label them and put them away in your pantry. Simple, easy, anybody can do this. You just have to believe in yourself, have the pressure canner, have the jars, and all the ingredients. Now, I will have the recipe for everything that I used in the description box below, and other information. Now, of course, some of the ingredients are optional. It all depends on you and how you want to make it for your family. I make it in pints because I know what's coming down the pike, and a pint is plenty enough for 2 people to have a good meal, because we've got to learn how to cut back. Have to learn how to do it. But this is 19 meals right here. This could be 19 days. This could be let's see, 9.5 of a day, or if you wanted to eat it twice a day. But yeah, simple, easy, anybody can do this. Now, like I said, if you do quarts, you can do quarts of it if you have a bigger family, but a pint jar is plenty for 2. Now, I hope this encourages you to also make your own stews. And you can add other vegetables if you want to. Peas, green beans, you name it. It's up to you. It's your recipe. It's what you're going to feed your family on down the line, or yourself. Even if you're single, you can do this. A pint jar is still plenty enough for a single person. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the comment section below, because I love to read them and I love to receive comments. It makes me happy. Everyone, take care. Please be safe and sound. Keep stocking up, because hard times are coming, because the food shortages are getting bigger. Everyone, may you each be blessed, and I will see you soon. Take care.